Okay, everyone, we're back home. I just want to touch on a few things about towing. All right, if you have a diesel, I think towing as far as pulling, and I think that would really be not a problem. I think that would be not a problem for diesels. 35, even the 50i, 35i. And I think the reason that M is it wants to put the power to shift. It wants to, the power is more spread out. And, I noticed this even coming from my 50i and then to the X5M, towing the same car, same trailer with the M3. So I think it'll probably do better, and probably the ride will be a little bit better too. Now, as far as the ride goes, like I said, I wasn't running any weight distribution hitch. There was no sway, and there were times where you go over bumps and you definitely could feel the trailer. As the trailer pitches, it puts the weight on the hit on the back of the X5. Also, another thing is when we're hitting crosswinds. Now, the trailer didn't sway, but it is a tall box essentially. So as the wind hits the side of the trailer, it moves the trailer a little bit, and you feel that little oscillations on the X5 itself. Nothing to where I felt like, oh, this is scary, but it was just something like a reminder, hey, that is a trailer back there. So pulling this thing though, I think probably the biggest hill was coming up 101. I think I was just outside of Monterey, going towards Gilroy, and this was a very, very steep hill. There was a few people pulling travel trailers, and including fifth wheels, and I just went right past them. I think the X5 was the only time I felt like it was going to, I wouldn't say struggle, but I had to give it a little bit more throttle. I think I gave it about maybe a quarter throttle to maintain my speed up the hill. And I think I downshift to fourth gear. And only because I was behind a fifth wheel, he lost speed to the point where he was going 45 miles an hour. And I need to pull it over to the middle lane to pass him. I went to fourth gear, is able to accelerate up the hill to about 55 miles an hour, upshift to fifth, and maintain my 55 all the way up. And I could have probably went to 60 and climbed from there, but that's just proves to you guys that there's a lot of power. And like I said, I'm only using a quarter of the power from an M. Like I said, a diesel is going to have plenty of torque. It's going to be able to do the same thing. A 50i is going to do the same thing. 35i is going to be able to do the same thing. I don't have a doubt that there's going to be power available. Mile per gallon. Now, miles per gallon, I was getting anywhere between 8.5 to 9 mile per gallon, and that was where things got expensive. And this is again where diesels would benefit because they tend to get better fuel mileage even while they're towing. That doesn't seem to affect them as much as a gasoline car, and this goes for anything pickup truck related. We're talking about pickup trucks. You compare a diesel to a gasoline. A diesel is always going to be better with that when it comes to towing. But I was getting 90 mile per gallon Unfortunately, I had to stop twice. So I would say each fill of about $100. Looking at average about $5.30 per gallon here in California, premium fuel. So let's just round it up, making it easy. $400 round trip to go to Pismo Beach, and that was a 4-hour trip, which tend to be a little bit longer because speed limit here in California is 55 while you're towing. I sat at a comfortable 65, occasionally 68, depending on traffic. If the traffic allowed me, and like I said, out loud, middle of nowhere. But basically, if there's no traffic or anything like that, I increased it about 68 miles per hour and was able to be just fine with that speed. I think only time I think when we left the beach, there was a stream, like to the point where I've seen the trees move. There was a lot of crosswinds. I just slowed down to 55, and again, 55, extremely going to be comfortable, even with the wind hitting it. I just think if you want to do it, if you're buying your own travel trailer, if you're gonna do this full time, find a way to get a sway control. I think just having that extra measure would be helpful, just because, said I'm temporary, every once in a while is okay, but doing it long time, there's all kinds of different things that's going to happen along the way. And like I said, you guys only seen 8 hours. I'm telling you guys 8 hours worth of my trip with experience with the trailer. One thing I want to try out, and I know the Stealth Hitch does not recommend towing with the rack system. I sort of want to try it. I don't know if anyone has an experience. I read one guy on the forum has an F95. I can't remember his name. I was Googling some stuff and it popped up, and anyway, he was towing with a F95, the X5M. They don't have the air suspension or anything, and he said he towed the rack system and just fine. So I may consider that. I don't know. I might do it again just to give feedback. But I know if it bends and it tears up, then I know that Stealth is not going to give me any warranty or anything like that. I'm kind of done with that. Also, but those speeds were pretty comfortable. I think even at my 65 miles per hour, there was a Mercedes GLE.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please say that again?
I wasn't talking to you. On my, there was a Mercedes GLE. I think there was a 45 AMG. Anyway, he passed me, had a travel trailer. He hit me at least 70 because I was like hit the pass, and he was continued to go on. So, and when he went past me, I looked over and I did see he did have a weight distribution and sway system all set up and everything like that. And like I said, to each your own. Like I said, if it's there available, but just to people who want to have questions, if X5 can do it without it, it can do it without it. Another thing I want to talk about is braking. The brakes on the X5M is really good, but the trailer brakes, it was hard to judge how much braking I needed. I did set, and it felt like I couldn't find that gap between, it was either where I felt like trailers were grabbing more than the X5, or the X5 was doing more work. And I think I've had it more set in the middle. It was a few adjustments, and like I said, this is different controller I'm used to using. I'm sure the settings are the same, it's just labeled differently for me. But I'm used to trucks where it's built in, and trucks you can usually just set your gain, and it's usually right there. And then if you need to do any manual, you have the two things to squeeze together. But luckily I never had to do that as far as any emergencies. But I'm looking at that button, the way that I tested it, when you hit it, it just goes to full max. I don't know if I really want to try that on the street, because what if that thing was, I'm 60 miles an hour and I hit that button, is it gonna lock up my trailer brakes? And I have no idea. So that's one thing I want to, a little concerning about. I don't know how that Kurt Echo brake controller, but it worked. It got the job done. It was probably the only solution I had. I tried to order the BMW factory one from BMW from 3 different websites, and both times they came back and canceled my order and said that it was no longer in stock or no longer available. So would I do this again? Yeah, I would. If I did a trip plan, I would say I wouldn't mind doing this maybe once, maybe twice a year. I wouldn't do it any more than that. I think any more than that, I'd rather, if I do it again, I'd rather do a little bit shorter trip, maybe no more than 2 hours. maybe 3 hours max. I went out now doing a 4 hour trip again, 4.5 hours. It was just too long. And like I said, if I did any more, I think a truck would be purposely built for it, would be more adequate and ready for this type of towing. Now, as far as the beach goes, now the beach was great. The X-Drive did great on the beach. Like I said, there was no traction control intervention at all. I think the only time where I thought I was going to get stuck was when we were leaving that place where we were parked. I had the wheel turn all the way to the right. I backed out, and the back end of the X5 started sitting in the sand, and you can see sand getting slung. And Lexi's like, "Oh, you're getting stuck." I'm like, "No, I'm not getting stuck. I don't want to get stuck." So I immediately started the gas for a second, turn the wheel straight, gave it more gas, and then let it sit there for maybe 2 seconds, and eventually it just powdered itself out of it. So I'm thinking either as I had the wheel all the way to the right and backing up in reverse, the X-Drive was not fully active as far as in that situation with the steering wheel being turned. But as soon as I just turned the steering wheel straight, it just came alive, and it was it was probably, I would say, maybe a 1 second wheel spin from that point, and then it backed itself out, and it was done. I think the X-Drive, it's smart enough to know, I felt like it's smart to know where I was on sand, because even when I'm driving through sand, it wasn't being too active to the point. Actually, like I said, I didn't see any light, no intervention. So I could feel the wheels were rolling a little bit, like spinning occasionally, but it wasn't kicking in and slowing my momentum down. It allowed me to keep momentum, and it was perfect. So if you found the video helpful, hopefully you did, be sure to give me a like, give me a thumbs up. It helps me out. And I will link all of the things I used in the description: the towing mirrors, the phone mount, the phone case. And I'll link, if you live in the Northern California, Vacaville, Dixon area, I'll give you guys my, where I went to get the car weighed, that scale. Very nice lady. She helped me weigh the trailer. She helped me detach and then get the tongue weight and everything else there. So I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure I covered that in the video. If I didn't, the tongue weight was 660, hitch weight, I'm sorry, the trailer weight was 5,500 pounds. So I'll link everything there. Additionally, I want to mention the suspension. The rear suspension, if you notice, it sagged a lot, and I thought it was going to spring back up while I was hooking up, but it didn't do it until the car started. Now, if I was hooking up a weight distribution hitch, that'd be perfect, because then I could level the vehicle appropriately. But it did make me nervous the first time coming in. Oh, it's X5. Usually it self-adjusts automatically. Now, part of that could be attributed to my hitch weight. I was at 660. I think the max that BMW recommends for the X5 is 600 pounds. The 600 pounds is a little on the light side, comparing, if you think about it, if you were to trailer a max of 700 or 7,000 pounds, you need about 700 pounds on the tongue to make that 10%. Otherwise, you are sort of adding that ingredient in for a trailer sway situation. So me being a little bit on the heavier side for the tongue, just maybe a little more secure, as far as I'd rather be a little heavier on the tongue than on the back of the trailer. And I think that also made it easier to tow without a weight system. So to take that into consideration, I don't think that you should do that all the time, but I mean, 60 pounds over, I mean, let's be honest, I'm sure that's, first of all, the hitch is well constructed for it, but as far as the weight on the front axle, it didn't seem to, steering was still good there. But like I said, if you're gonna get a full trailer, if this is your one you're gonna own, I would think of weight distribution or something to make sure that you are balanced and something that's appropriate. All right. But thank you very much for watching. So as I was editing the video, I realized I forgot to talk about something. and that was the transmission temperature, or actually the engine temperature. Now with the BMW, with the stock gauges, there isn't any way to really measure the coolant temperature because it prioritizes the oil temp over coolant, which I understand. And then the transmission temperature, there's nothing there. I know that there are sensors and things, so when things exceed those values, you do get an alert. But I wanted to monitor those things sort of real time to be proactive in case, like I said, if I felt like there was a lot of stress. And they said this was a heavy tow, weight wise, like I said, the 5,500 pounds was okay weight wise, but it is a big, wide, essentially, I felt like I was pulling a parachute. The faster I drove, the more that I could feel the trailer, the drag. But like I said, most of the time the X5 stayed in 7th gear. Occasionally on some flat surface I can go to 8th, but most of them I stayed in 7th. And the only time I really had to downshift to 6th is maybe a hill to, occasionally a hill to maintain my speed. And then the only time I really had to downshift was on that pass that I showed earlier in the video. Transmission temperature sat around the mid to high 180s. And that can be contributed to the BMW, since it's an M model. The M's do really well cooling the transmission. Like I said, I had the option. I think at one point I did go to Sport Plus. When it went to like the 190s, the high 190s, I thought, oh, let me see what happens. And I saw it gradually went down to the 180s. But there are times where I just didn't even touch Sport Plus, left it in efficient or sport. And it seemed perfectly fine maintaining the 190 and not exceeding that much higher than that. I think if I was probably in a higher gear, if I had to stay in like 5th gear or something, maybe it'd have been a little bit more work on the transmission. But that stayed good there. And the coolant temperature was the same topic because it always stayed parked. I believe, let me see where that was. Around the 210 range, 213 range is where it seemed to be right there. It never seemed to want to overheat. Of course, the oil temperature, you can see that gauge real time in the instrument cluster. That gauge never budged other than what this seems to be normal reading. So the X5 did great. But yeah, just to recap, anything like if you're doing this long term, I would think a truck would be purposely built. But I'm not saying X5 can do it. I just think the wear and tear that you're going to incur on the X5 would start to go at a rapid rate, transmission fluids and things. And if you were going to do this long term with the X5, I would just recommend this, that once again, weight distribution or sway control. I think sway is just something, the X5 has a built-in sway system, but it is a reactive system. I'd rather not rely on that. I'd rather have something to prevent it than try to stop it when it's happening. So that's my thought on that. All right, so if you enjoyed the video, thank you. Give me a thumbs up. It just helps put my videos out there so more people can watch them. And thank you for watching.